to Story Time with Captain Party. On today's episode, we're going to be reading Chapter 3 of Invisible Monsters. Let's get to it, shall we? Until I met Brandy, all I wanted was for somebody to ask me what happened to my face. Birds ate it, I wanted to tell them. Birds ate my face. But nobody wanted to know. Then nobody doesn't include Brandy Alexander. Just don't think this was a big coincidence. We had to meet, Brandy and me. We had so many things in common. We had close to everything in common. And besides, it happens fast for some people and slow for some. Accidents or gravity. But we all end up mutilated. Most women know this feeling of being more and more invisible every day. Brandy was in the hospital for months and months, and so was I. And there's only so many hospitals where you can go for major cosmetic surgery. Jump back to the nuns who were nurses. One nun would tell me about some patient on a different floor who was funny and charming. He was a lawyer and could do magic tricks with just his hands and paper napkins. This day nurse was the kind of nun who wore a white nursing version of her regular nun uniform, and she'd told this lawyer all about me. This was Sister Catherine. She told him I was funny and bright, and she said how sweet it would be if the two of us could just meet and fall madly in love. Those were her words. Halfway down the bridge of her nose, she'd look at me through wire-framed glasses, their lenses long and squared the way a microscope slide looks. Little broken veins kept the end of her nose red. Rosacea, she called it. It would be easier to see her living in a gingerbread house than a convent. Married to Santa Claus instead of God. The starched apron she wore over her habit was so glaring white that when I had first arrived, fresh from my big car accident, I remembered how all the stains from my blood looked black. They gave me a pen and a paper so I could communicate. They wrapped my head in dressings, yards of tight gauze, holding wads of cotton in place, metal butterfly sutures gripping all over so I wouldn't unravel. They fingered on a thick layer of antibiotic gel, claustrophobic and toxic under the wads of cotton. My hair they pulled back, forgotten and hot under the gauze, where I couldn't get at it. The invisible woman. And when Sister Catherine mentioned this to this other patient, I wondered if maybe I'd seen him around, her lawyer, the cute, funny magician. Oh, I didn't say he was cute, she said. Sister Catherine said, he's still a little shy. On the pad of paper I wrote, still? Since the mishap, she said, and smiled with her eyebrows arching and all her chins tucked down against her neck. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She said, his car rolled right over the top of him. She said, that's why he'd be so perfect for you. Early on, while I was still sedated, somebody had taken the mirror out of my bathroom. The nurses seemed to steer me away from polished anything the way they kept the suicides away from knives, the drunks away from drinks. The closest I had to a mirror was the television, and it only showed how I used to look. If I asked to see police photos from the accident, the day nurse would tell me, no. They kept the photos in a file at the nursing station, and it seemed anybody could ask to see them except me. This nurse, she'd say, the doctors think you've suffered enough for the time being. This same day nurse tried to fix me up with an accountant whose hair and ears were burned off in a propane blender. She introduced me to a graduate student who'd lost his throat and sinuses to a touch of cancer. A window washer after his 3-story tumble head first into the concrete. Those were all her words. Blunder, touch, tumble. The lawyer's mishap, my big accident. Sister Catherine would be there to check my vital signs every 6 hours, to check my pulse against the sweeping second hands on her man's wristwatch, thick and silver, to wrap the blood pressure cuff around my arm, to check my temperature, She'd pushed some kind of electric gun into my ear. Sister Catherine was the kind of nun who wears a wedding ring, and married people always think that love is the answer. Jump back to the day of my big accident, when everybody was so considerate. The folks who let me go ahead of them in the emergency room, what the police insisted. I mean, they gave me this hospital sheet with property of La Paloma Memorial Hospital printed along the edge in indelible blue. First they gave me morphine intravenously, then they propped me up on a gurney. I don't remember much of this, but the day nurse told me about the police photos. In the pictures, these big 8x10 glossies, as nice as anything in my portfolio. Black and white, the nurse said. But in these 8x10s, I'm sitting up on a gurney with my back against the emergency room wall. The attending nurse spent 10 minutes cutting my dress off with those tiny operating room manicure scissors. The cutting. I remember. It was my cotton crepe sundress from Esprit. I remember that when I ordered this dress from the catalog, I almost ordered two. They're so comfortable. Loose with the breeze, trying to get inside the armholes and lift the hem around your waist. Then you'd sweat if there wasn't a breeze, and the cotton crepe stuck on you like 11 herbs and spices, only on you the dress was almost transparent. And you'd walk onto the patio, and it was a great feeling, a million spotlights picking you out of the crowd. Or you'd walk into a restaurant when outside it was 90 degrees and everyone would turn and look as if you'd just been awarded some major distinguished award for a major lifetime achievement. That's how it felt. I can remember this kind of attention. It always felt 90 degrees hot. And I remember my underwear. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, God. But I was wearing just this little patch up the front with an elastic string waist and just one string running down the crack and back around to the bottom of the patch up front. Flesh tone. That one string down the crack. Butt floss is what everybody calls that string. I wore the patch underwear because of when the cotton crepe sundress goes almost transparent. You just don't plan on ending up in an emergency room with your dress cut off and detectives taking your picture, propped up on a gurney with a morphine drip in one arm and a Franciscan nun screaming in one ear, take your pictures now, she's losing blood." No, really, it was funnier than it sounds. It got funny when I was sprawled on this gurney, this anatomically correct rag doll with nothing but this little patch on, and my face was the way it is now. The police, they had the nun hold this sheet up over my breasts. It's so they can take pictures of my face. But the detectives are so embarrassed for me being sprawled there, topless. Jump to when they refused to show me the pictures. One of the detectives says that if the bullet had been 2 inches higher, I'd be dead. I couldn't see their point. 2 inches lower and I'd be deep-fried in my spicy cotton crepe sundress trying to get the insurance guy to waive the deductible and replace my car windows. And then I'd be by a swimming pool wearing sunblock and telling a couple of cute guys how I was driving on the freeway in my Stingray on a rock or I don't know what, but my driver's side window, it just burst. And the cute guys would say, "Whoa." Jump to another detective, the one who searched my car for the slug and bone fragments. That stuff, the detective saw how I'd been driving with the window half open. A car window. This guy tells me over 8x10 glossies of me wearing a white sheet that a car window should always be all the way open or all the way shut. He couldn't remember how many motorists he'd seen decapitated by windows in car accidents. How could I not laugh? That was his word. Motorists. The way my mouth was, the only sound left I could do was laugh. I couldn't not laugh. Jump to after there were pictures when people stopped looking at me. My boyfriend Manus came in that evening after the emergency room, after I'd been wheeled off on my gurney to surgery, after the bleeding had stopped and I was in a private room. Then Manus showed up, Manus Kelly, who was my fiancé, until he saw what was left. Manus sat looking at the black and white glossies of my new face, shuffling and reshuffling them, turning them upside down and right side up the way you would one of those mystery pictures where 1 minute you have a beautiful woman, but when you look at it again you've got a hag. And Manus says, "Oh, God," and then says, "Oh, sweet Jesus," and then says, "Christ." The first date I ever had with Manus, I was still living with my folks. Manus showed me a badge in his wallet. At home, he had a gun. He was a police detective, and he was really successful in Vice. This was a May and December thing. Manus was 25 and I was 18. But we went out. This is the world we live in. We went sailing one time, and he wore a Speedo, and any smart woman should know that that means bisexual at least. My best friend, Evie Cottrell, she's a model. Evie says that beautiful people should never date each other. Together, they just don't generate enough attention, Evie says. There's a whole shift in the beauty standard when they're together. You can feel this, Evie says. When both of you are beautiful, neither of you is beautiful. Together as a couple, you're less than the sum of your parts. Nobody really gets noticed. Not anymore. Still, there I was one time taping this infomercial, one of those long commercials you think will end at any moment because, after all, it's just a commercial, but it's actually 30 minutes long. Me and Evie, we were hired to be walking sex furniture, to wear tight evening dresses all afternoon and entice the television audience into buying the Num Snack Factory. Manus comes to sit in the studio audience, and after the shoot he goes, "Let's go sailing." And I go, "Sure." So we went sailing, and I forgot my sunglasses, so Manus buys me a pair on the dock. My new sunglasses are the exact same as Manus's Veronets, except mine are made in Korea, not Switzerland, and cost $2. "3 miles out, I'm walking into deck things. I'm falling down. Manus throws me a rope and I miss it. Manus throws me a beer and I miss the beer. A headache. I get the kind of headache God would smote you with in the Old Testament. What I don't know is that one of my sunglass lenses is darker than the other, almost opaque. I'm blind in one eye because of this lens, and I have no depth perception. Back then I don't know this, that my perception is so fucked up. It's the sun, I tell myself. So I just keep wearing the sunglasses and stumbling around blind and in pain. Jump to the second time Manus visits me in the hospital. He tells the 8x10 glossies of me in my sheet, property of L.A. Paloma Memorial Hospital, that I should think about getting back into my life. I should start making plans. You know, he says, take some classes, finish my degree. He sits next to my bed and holds the photos between us, so I can't see either them or him. On my pad, with my pencil, I ask Manus in writing to show me. When I was little, we raised Doberman puppies, he says, from behind the photos. And when a puppy is about 6 months old, you get its ears and tail cropped. It's the style for those dogs. You go to a motel where a man travels from state to state, cutting the ears and tails off thousands of Doberman puppies or boxers or bull terriers. On my pad with my pencil I write, "Your point being," and I wave this in his direction. The point is, whoever cuts your ears off is the one you'll hate for the rest of your life, he says. You don't want your regular veterinarian to do that job, so you pay a stranger. Still looking at picture after picture, Manus says, "That's the reason I can't show you these." Somewhere outside the hospital, in a motel room full of bloody towels with his toolbox of knives and needles, or driving down the highway to his next victim, or kneeling over a dog drugged and cut up in a dirty bathtub, is the man a million dogs must hate. And sitting next to my bed, Manny says, "You just need to achieve your cover girl dreams." The fashion photographer inside my head yells, "Give me pity, Flash. Give me another chance, Flash." That's what I did before the accident. Call me a big liar, but before the accident I told people I was a college student. If you tell folks you're a model, they shut down. Your being a model will mean that they're networking with some lower life form. They start using baby talk. They dumb down. But if you tell folks you're a college student, folks are impressed. You can be a student in anything and not have to know anything. Just say toxicology or marine biokinesis, and the person you're talking to will change the subject to himself. And if this doesn't work, mention the neural synapses of embryonic pigeons. I was a real college student. I have about 1,600 credits toward an undergraduate degree in personal fitness training. What I hear from my parents is that I could be a doctor by now. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, God. There was a time when Evie and me went out to dance clubs and bars, and men would wait outside the ladies' room door to catch us. Guys would say they were casting a television commercial. The guy would give me a business card and ask what agency I was with. There was a time when my mom came to visit. My mom smokes, and the first afternoon I came home from the shoot, she held out a matchbook and said, "What is the meaning of this?" She said, "Please tell me you're not as big a slut as your poor dead brother." In the matchbook was a guy's name I didn't know and a telephone number. "This isn't the only one I found," Mom says. "What are you running here?" I don't smoke. I tell her that. These matchbooks pile up because I'm too polite not to take them, and I'm too frugal to just throw them away. And that's why it takes a whole kitchen drawer to hold them. All these men I can't remember, and all their telephone numbers. Jump to No Day Special in the hospital, just outside the office of the hospital speech therapist. The nurse was leading me around by my elbow for exercise, and as we came around this one corner, just inside the open office doorway, boom! Brandy Alexander was just so there. Glorious in a seated Princess Alexander pose, in an iridescent Vivienne Westwood catsuit, changing colors with her every move. Vogue on location. The fashion photographer inside my head yelling, "Give me wonder, baby! Flash! Give me amazement! Flash!" The speech therapist said, "Brandy, you can raise the pitch of your voice if you raise your laryngeal cartilage. It's that bump in your throat. If you feel going up as you sing ascending scales," she said. "If you can keep your voice box raised high in your throat, your voice should stay between a G and a middle C, and that's about 160 hertz. Brandy Alexander, and the way she looked, turned the rest of the world into virtual reality. She changed color from every new angle. She turned green with my one step, red with my next. She turned silver and gold, and then she was dropped behind us and gone. "Oh, that poor, sad, misguided thing," Sister Catherine said, and she spat on the concrete floor. She looked at me, craning my neck to see back down the hall, and she asked me if I had any family. And I wrote, "Yeah, there's my gay brother, but he's dead from AIDS." And she says, "Well, that's for the best then, isn't it?" Jump to the week after Manus's last visit. Last meaning final. When Evie drops by the hospital. Evie looks at the glossies and talks to God and Jesus Christ. "You know," Evie tells me across a stack of Vogues and Glamour magazines in her lap that she brings me, "I talked to the agency and they said that if we redo your portfolio, they'll consider taking you back for handwork." Evie means a hand model, modeling cocktail rings and diamond tennis bracelets and shit. Like I want to hear this. I can't talk. All I can eat is liquids. Nobody will look at me. I am invisible. All I want is somebody to ask me what happened, and then I'll get on with my life. Evie tells the stack of magazines, I want you to come live with me in my house when you get out. She unzips her canvas bag on the edge of my bed and goes into it with both hands. Evie says, it'll be fun, you'll see. I hate living all by my lonesome. And says, I've already moved your things into my spare bedroom. Still in her bag, Evie says, I'm on my way to shoot. Any chance you have any agency vouchers you can lend me? On my pad with my pencil I write, Is that my sweater you're wearing? And I wave the pad in her face. Yeah, she says, but I knew you wouldn't mind. And I write, It's a size 6. I write, and you're a size 9. Listen, Evie says, my call is for 2 o'clock. Why don't I stop by sometime when you're in a better mood? Talking to her watch, she says, I'm so sorry things had to go this way. It wasn't all of it anybody's fault. Every day I'm in the hospital goes like this. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Sister Catherine falls in between. On television is one network running nothing but infomercials all day and all night, and there we are, Evie and me together. We've got a raft of bucks for the snack factory thing. We do these big celebrity spokesmodel smiles, the ones where you make your face a big space heater. We're wearing these sequin dresses that when you get them under the spotlight, the dress flashes like a million reporters taking your picture. So glamorous. And I'm standing there in this 20-pound dress, doing this big smile, and dropping animal wastes into the plexiglass funnel on top of the Num Num snack factory. This thing just poops out little canapes like crazy, and Evie has to wade out into the studio audience and get folks to eat the canapes. Canapes. Folks will eat anything to get on television. Then off-camera, Manus goes, Let's go sailing. And I go, Sure. It was so stupid, my not knowing what was happening all along. Jumped to Brandy on a folding chair just inside of the office of the speech therapist, shaping her fingernails with a scratch pad from a book of matches. Her long legs could squeeze a motorcycle in half, and the legal minimum of her shrink-wrapped in a leopard print stretch terry just screaming to get out. This speech therapist says, Keep your glottis partially open as you speak. It's the way Marilyn Monroe sang Happy Birthday to President Kennedy. It makes your breath bypass your vocal cords for a more feminine and helpless quality. The nurse leads me past in my cardboard slippers, my tight bandages, and deep funk, and Brandy Alexander looks up at the last possible instant, and she winks. God should be able to wink that good, like somebody taking your picture. Give me joy, give me fun, give me love. Flash. Angels in heaven should blow kisses the way Brandy Alexander does, and lights up the rest of my week. Back in my room I write, Who is she? No one you should have any truck with, the nurse says. You'll have problems enough as it is. But who is she, I write. If you can believe it, the nurse says, that one is someone different every week. It's after that Sister Catherine starts matchmaking to save me from Brandy Alexander. She offers me the lawyer without a nose. She offers a mountain-climbing dentist whose fingers and facial features are eaten down to little hard, shining bumps by frostbite. A missionary with dark patches of some tropical fungus just under his skin. A mechanic who leaned over a battery the moment it exploded and the acid left his lips and cheeks gone and his yellow teeth showing in a permanent snarl. I look at the nun's wedding ring and I write, I guess you got the last really buff guy. The whole time I was in the hospital, no way I could fall in love. I just couldn't go there yet. Settle for less. I didn't want to process through anything. I didn't want to pick up any pieces. I didn't want to lower my expectations. Get on with my less than life. I didn't want to feel better about being still alive. Start compensating. I just wanted my face fixed, if that was possible, which it wasn't. When it's time to reintroduce me to solid foods, Their words again. It's pureed chicken and strained carrots. Baby foods. Everything mashed or pulverized or crushed. You are what you eat. And the nurse brings me the personal classified ads from a newsletter. Sister Catherine peers down her nose and through her glasses to read, Guys seeking slim, adventurous girl for fun and romance. And yes, it's true, not one single guy specifically excludes hideous, mutilated girls with growing medical bills. And Sister Catherine tells me, these men you can write to in prison don't need to know how you really look. It's just too much trouble to try to explain my feelings to her in writing. Sister Catherine reads me the singles column while I spoon up my roast beef. She offers arsonists, burglars, tax cheats. She says, you probably don't want to date a rapist, not right off. Nobody's that desperate. Between the lonely men behind bars for armed robbery and second-degree manslaughter, she stops to ask what's the matter. She takes my hand and talks to the name on my plastic bracelet. Such a hand model. I'm already cocktail ring, plastic ID bracelet. I'm already cocktail rings, plastic ID bracelets, so beautiful even a bride of Christ can't take her eyes off them. And she says, what are you feeling? This is hilarious. She says, don't you want to fall in love? And the photographer in my head says, give me patience. Flash. Give me control. Flash. The situation is, I have half a face. Inside my bandages, my face still bleeds tiny little spots of blood into the wads of cotton. One doctor, the one making rounds every morning who checks my dressing, he says my wound is still weeping. That's his word. I still can't talk. I have no career. I can only eat baby food. Nobody will ever look at me like I've won a big prize ever again. Nothing, I write on my pad, nothing is wrong. You haven't mourned, Sister Catherine says. You need to have a good cry and then get on with your life. You're being too calm about this. I write, don't make me laugh. My face, I write, the doctor says, my wound will weep. Still, at least somebody had noticed. This whole time I was calm. I was the picture of calm. I never panicked. I saw my blood and snot and teeth splashed all over the dashboard the moment after the accident. But hysteria is impossible without an audience. Panicking by yourself is the same thing as laughing alone in an empty room. You feel really silly. The instant the accident happened, I knew I would die if I didn't take the next exit off the freeway, turn right on Northwest Grower, and go 12 blocks, and turn into L.A. Paloma Memorial Hospital emergency room parking lot. I parked, I took my keys in my bag, and I walked. The glass doors slid aside before I could see myself reflected in them. The crowd inside, all the people waiting with broken legs and choking babies, they all slid aside too when they saw me. After that, the intravenous morphine, the tiny operating room, manicure scissors cut my dress up, the flesh-tone, little patch panties, the police photos. The detective, the one who searched my car for bone fragments, the guy who had seen all those people get their heads cut off in half-open car windows, he comes back one day and says there's nothing left to find. Birds, seagulls, maybe magpies too. They got into the car where it was parked at the hospital through the broken window. The magpies ate all of what the detectives call the soft tissue evidence. The bones they probably carried away. You know, miss, he says, to break them on rocks for the marrow. On the pad with the pencil I write, ha 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 ha. Jump to just before my bandages come off, when a speech therapist says that I should get down on my knees and thank God for leaving my tongue in my head unharmed. And we sit in her cinder block office with half the room filled by her steel desk between us, and the therapist, she teaches me how the ventriloquist makes a dummy talk. You see, the ventriloquist can't let you see his mouth move. He can't really use his lips, so he presses his tongue against the roof of his mouth to make words. Instead of a window, the therapist has a poster of a kitten covered in spaghetti above the words, accentuate the positive. She says that if you can't make a certain sound without using your lips, substitute a similar sound. The therapist says, for instance, use the sound eth instead of the sound f. The context in which you use the sound will make you understandable. I'd rather be thithing, the therapist says, than go thithing, I write. No, she says, repeat. My throat is always raw and dry, even after a million liquids through straws all day. The scar tissue is rippled hard and polished around my unharmed tongue. The therapist says, I'd rather be thithing. And I say, no, not that way, the therapist says. You're not doing it right. And I say, and she says, no, that's not right either. And she looks at her watch. I say, you'll need to practice a lot, but on your own time, she says. Now again. And I say, and she says, good, great, see how easy? On my pad, with my pencil, I write, fuck off. Jump to the day they cut off the bandages. You don't know what to expect, but every doctor and nurse and intern and orderly janitor and cook in a hospital, they all stopped by for a peek from the doorway, and if you caught them, they'd bark. They'd bark congratulations, the corners of their mouths spread wide apart and trembling in a stiff, watery smile. Bug-eyed. That's my word for it. And I held up the same cardboard sign again and again and told them, thank you. And then I ran away. This is after my new cotton crepe sundress arrives from a spree. Sister Catherine stood over me all morning with a curling iron until my hair was this big buttercream frosting hairdo, this big off-the-face hairdo, and then Evie brought some makeup and did my eyes and put on my spicy new dress, and I couldn't wait to start sweating. This whole summer I hadn't seen a mirror, or if I did, I never realized the reflection was me. I hadn't seen the police photos. And when Evie and Sister Catherine were done, I say, and Evie says, you're welcome. And Sister Catherine says, but you just ate lunch. It's clear enough. Nobody understands me. And I say, and Evie says, yeah, those are your shoes, but I'm not hurting them any. And Sister Catherine says, no mail yet, but we can write to the prisoners after you've had your nap, dear. And they left. And I left, alone. And how bad could it be, my face? And sometimes being mutilated can work to your advantage. All those people now with piercings and tattoos and brandings and scarification, what I mean is, attention is attention. Going outside is the first time I feel I've missed something. I mean, the whole summer just happened and disappeared. All those pool parties and lying around on metal flake speedboat bows, catching rays, finding guys with convertibles. I get all the picnics and softball games and concerts are just sort of trickled down into a few snapshots that Evie won't have developed until around Thanksgiving. Going outside, the world is all color after the white on white of the hospital. It's going over the rainbow. And I walk up to a supermarket, and shopping feels like a game I haven't played since I was a little girl. And here are all my favorite name brand products, all those colors. French's mustard, rice-a-roni, top ramen. Everything trying to catch your attention. All that color. A whole shift in the beauty standard so that no one thing really stands out. The total being less than the sum of its parts. All that color all in one place. And except for that name brand product rainbow, there's nothing else to look at. And when I look at people, all I can see is the back of everybody's head. Even if I turn super fast, all I can catch is somebody's ear turning away and folks are talking to God. Oh, God, they say. Did you see that? And was that a mask? Christ, it's a bit early for Halloween. Everybody is very busy reading the labels on French mustard and rice-a-roni. So I take a turkey. I don't know why. I don't have any money, but I take a turkey. I dig the big frozen turkeys around those big flesh-toned lumps of ice in the freezer bin. I dig around until I find the biggest turkey, and I heft it up baby style in its yellow plastic netting, and I haul myself up to the front of the store, right through the check stands. And nobody stops me. Nobody's even looking. They're all reading those tabloid newspapers as if there's hidden gold in there. Senkfen die UFO Nukelberg, I say. Nee, look at your where's when Durshkin? Nobody looks up. Zuckerberg! I say in my best ventriloquist voice. Nobody even talks. Maybe just the clerks talk. Do you have 2 pieces of ID? They're asking people writing checks. Virgin Jurvika Vergavov, I say. Exited Quinnickwood 6 egg. Then it's all right then, a boy says. Then it's right about then that a boy says, Look! And everybody who's not looking and not talking stops breathing. And the little boy says, Look, Mom, look over there, that monster is stealing food. Everybody gets all shrunken up with embarrassment. All their heads drop down into their shoulders the way they look on crutches. They're reading tabloid headlines harder than ever. Monster girl steals festive holiday bird. And there I am, deep fried in my cotton crepe dress, a 25-pound turkey in my arms. The turkey's sweating, my dress almost transparent. My nipples are rock hard against the yellow netting, ice in my arms. Me under my buttercream frosting hairdo. Nobody's looking at me as if I've won a big anything. A hand comes down and slaps the little boy, and the boy starts to wail. The boy is wailing the way you cry as if you've done nothing wrong, but you got punished anyways. The sun's setting outside. Inside, everything's dead, except this little voice screaming over and over, Why did you hit me? I didn't do anything. Why did you hit me? What did I do? And I took the turkey, and I walked as fast as I could back to La Paloma Memorial Hospital. It was almost dark. The whole time I'm hugging the turkey, and I'm telling myself, turkeys, seagulls, magpies, birds. Birds ate my face. Back in the hospital, coming down the hallway towards me is Sister Catherine, leading a man and his IV stand. The man all wrapped in gauze and hung with drain tubes and plastic bags of yellow and red fluids leaking into and out of him. Birds ate my face. From closer and closer, Sister Catherine shouts, Yoo-hoo! I have someone special here you'd just love to meet. Birds ate my face. Between me and them is the speech therapist office, and when I go to duck inside, there's Brandy Alexander. For the 3rd time, the queen of everything good and kind, is wearing this sleeveless Versace kind of tank dress, with this season's overwhelming feel of despair and corrupt resignation. Body-conscious yet humiliated, buoyant and crippled. The Queen Supreme is the most beautiful anything I've ever seen, so I just vogue there to watch from the doorway. Men, the therapist says, stress the adjective when they speak, the therapist says. For instance, a man would say, You're so attractive today. Brandy is so attractive you could chop her head off and put it on a blue velvet in the window at Tiffany's and somebody would buy it for $1 million. A woman would say, You're so attractive today, the therapist says. Now you, Brandy, you say it. Stress the modifier, not the adjective. And Brandy Alexander looks her burning blueberry eyes at me in the doorway and says, Posing girl, you are so god-awful ugly. Did you let an elephant sit on your face, or what? Brandy's voice, I barely hear what she says. At that instant, I just adore Brandy so much. Everything about her feels as good as being beautiful and looking in the mirror. Brandy is my instant royal family, my only everything to live for. I go, noise, and I pile the cold, wet turkey into the speech therapist's lap, her sitting pinned under 25 pounds of dead meat in her roll-around leather desk chair. From closer down the hallway, Sister Catherine is yelling, Yoo-hoo! I go, and I wheel the therapist in her chair into the hallway, and I say, "Join my competitor." And the speech therapist, she's smiling up at me and says, "You don't have to thank me. It's just my job is all." And the nuns arrived with the man and his IV stand, and a new man with no skin or crushed features or all his teeth brushed out, and a man who would be perfect for me, my one true love, my deformed or mutilated or diseased Prince Charming, my unhappily ever after, my hideous future, the monstrous rest of my life. And I slam the office door and I lock myself inside with Brandy Alexander. There's the speech therapist's notebook on her desk, and I grab it. "Save me," I write, and I wave it in Brandy's face. I write, "Please." Jump to Brandy Alexander's hands. This always starts with her hands. Brandy Alexander puts a hand out, one of those big pig-knuckled hands, with the veins of her arm crowded and squeezed to the elbow, with bangle bracelets of every color. Just by herself, Brandy Alexander is such a shift in beauty standard that no one thing stands out. Not even you. "So, girl," Brandy says, "what all happened to your face?" "Birds," I write. "Birds ate my face." And I start to laugh. Brandy doesn't laugh. Brandy says, "What's that supposed to mean?" And I'm still laughing. "I was driving on the freeway," I write, "and I'm still laughing. Someone shot a .30 caliber bullet from a rifle, and the bullet tore my entire jawbone off my face." Still laughing. "I came to the hospital," I write. "I did not die." Laughing. "They couldn't put my jawbone back because the seagulls had eaten it." And I stop laughing. "Girl, your handwriting is terrible," Brandy says. "Now tell me what else." And I start to cry. What else, I write, is I have to eat baby food. I can't talk. I have no career. I have no home. My fiancé left me. Nobody will look at me. All my clothes, my best friend ruined them. I'm still crying. "What else?" Brandy says. "Tell me everything." "A boy," I write. "A little boy in the supermarket called me a monster. And those burning blueberry eyes look right at me the way no eyes have all summer." "Your perception is all fucked up," Brandy says. "All you can talk about is trash that's already happened." She says, "You can't base your life on the past or the present." Brandy says, "You have to tell me about your future." Brandy Alexander, she stands up on her gold lame hold leg trap shoes. And the Queen Supreme takes a jeweled compact out of her clutch bag and snaps the compact open to look at the mirror inside. "That therapist," those plumbago lips say. "That speech therapist can be so stupid about these situations." And the big jeweled arm muscles of Brandy sit me down in the seat, still hot from her ass, and she holds the compact so I can see inside. And instead of face powder, it's full of white capsules, and where there should be a mirror, there's just a close-up photo of Brandy Alexander smiling and looking terrific. "The Vicodins, dear," she says. "It's the Marilyn Monroe School of Medicine where enough of any drug will cure any disease." She says, "Dig in, help yourself." And the thin and eternal goddess that she is, Brandy's picture smiles up at me over a sea of painkillers. And this is how I met Brandy Alexander. And this is how I found the strength to not get on with my former life. And this is how I found the courage not to pick up the same old pieces. "Now," those plumbago lips say, "you're going to tell me your story, like you just did. Write it all down. Tell me that story over and over. Tell me your sad-ass story all night." That Brandy Queen, she points a long bony finger at me. "When you understand," Brandy says, "that what you're telling me is just a story, it isn't happening anymore, when you realize the story you're telling is just words, then you can just crumple it up and throw it in your past into the trash can," Brandy says, "and then we will figure out who you're going to be." And that's our chapter for this evening. I hope you'll join us next time. Until then, ta-ta!